If you actually believe Brazil is going to impact Nintendo's business in any significant way, you don't know anything about the country, you don't know anything about Nintendo's relationship with them, you don't know anything about this country of pirates that has spent like the past 30 years just normalizing piracy in their country because of just extraordinarily high taxes. You don't know about how Nintendo traditionally has not released consoles there because of just how terrible it is. Like, typically, how Brazilians get their consoles is that they import them from other countries because the taxes there on foreign goods, like Nintendo Switches, are extraordinarily high. Switch 2 is far more expensive there than it is in most other places. So, without all that being said, this giant cope that people have about Brazil's like, oh, Brazil's coming after Nintendo. It's like, yeah, because it's normal, because piracy is normalized there. They're doing everything they can to fight back against Nintendo. Preserving their piracy culture and preserving their illicit economy of modding hardware and just being this like bottom of the barrel South American country. Like, no, it's not gonna work. Anybody who thinks there's going to be like any like huge major like Nintendo L's from this are just gonna be like very, very disappointed, and this reminds me a lot of like what happened when like they Nintendo lost that lawsuit against that guy with the grocery store. People made it out to be some major L on Nintendo's part, and it's just, no, he got to keep the name of his store. Like, that's all it is. And this is kind of a similar situation in which, like, Brazil is going to lose. They have no power over Nintendo. They have no ability to like go after them. Like, what are they gonna do? Like, that's just the reality of it. But like every other like Nintendo related lawsuit, this is the reoccurring thing that you're seeing in the community. And it's actually the main reason I'm bringing this up, because I actually had no intention of talking about the lawsuit in and of itself, because it's not going to go anywhere and it's not going to be that big of a deal. But like, every time you see Nintendo like being involved in a lawsuit, the media and like the drama channels like really try very hard to always present Nintendo as like the worst thing ever, like every single time. I made this observation on my community tab, and I'll repeat it here. Just compare how people are like viewing this versus like the Power World case. Ooh, Brazil suing Nintendo is based, but Nintendo suing Power World is wrong. It's just a very transparently clear thing that the industry is inherently biased against Nintendo. And instead of like looking at each individual case with the nuance it deserves, the general consensus among like Americans, Westerners, game journos, analysts is to like always, 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 always present Nintendo as the bad guy. Like right now, you keep seeing people like acknowledge the gaming crash, the downfall of the gaming industry, how like these major AAA companies are like failing left and right. And at the same time, they're simultaneously like ignoring the reality of the situation. Is that the reason these companies are failing? The real reason is because they went up against Nintendo and lost. They threw everything they had at the big N, the true N word, and they completely failed. Okay? There is just no getting around the fact, there is just no denying a reality that like the real reason that the AAA gaming scene is failing, the real reason Xbox is leaving the console space, and while Neil Druckmann is like, running away with his tail between the legs, like they went up against Nintendo and lost, like, and the general gaming community still doesn't see it. They really think that PC gaming is this hugely dominant, like, major phenomenon. And meanwhile, in reality, you have people paying more money for like Pokemon plushies than they would for like, graphics cards. Like that's just the reality of it, is that like Nintendo has already expanded outside of the realm of traditional hardware space, while Steam can't even get like their hardware off the ground. Like that's the reality of the situation. Like the PC master race is just like, an unholy alliance of like, AAA third party developers, PlayStation and Xbox, of Steam, of like, Nvidia and all these like, PC like parts manufacturers. You're talking about like Facebook gaming and like Korean gacha whores. You're all of this is like forming a Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Trying to defeat Thanos, and all of it is failing. Like all of it is just completely collapsing because Nintendo is just too powerful. I saw Grumps today, on Twitter, like, oh, console, the PC won the console war. Like, PC never entered the console space to begin with. PC is not like an actual corporation that directly profits from every PC part sold, every game sold on the platform. Steam is nowhere near as successful as Nintendo, and that's just the reality of it. But like, the PC master race desperately doesn't want to admit it. They see they like to correlate emulation and piracy with Steam. Like, oh, why would I buy a Nintendo console when I can just emulate my games on my PC? Steam is the best. Completely refusing to acknowledge the reality that Steam has nothing to do with emulation. Like when Dolphin tried to put their product on their software on Steam, like Gabe Newell shit his pants and had to like like personally apologize to Nintendo for it. Like people people aren't willing to acknowledge just how badly Nintendo is dominating the console industry right now. And so like you have them like militantly like obsessing over like every minor incident they possibly could. Like, oh, Brazil's gonna do something. Oh, like Power World's gonna do something. Oh, like Steam's gonna do something. Like, they're not gonna do shit. Like, they can't do shit. And I think the Switch 2 launch has really proved that very well, because everyone in the community like tried to say the Switch 2 was a bad idea. Everyone tried to come out and say that like the Switch 2 was going to be a failure and that Nintendo was like screwing everyone over and that $80 for a game was too much. And the reality has just kind of like exploded in their faces, right? And what the worst part of it, and I do think this is like the big deal, that you're going to see in regards to the Power World situation, in regards to like Nintendo beating out PC, and in regards to the Brazil thing, in regards to everything else that's going on. Like, you're never, ever going to see these people acknowledge that they were wrong. That Nintendo is successful, that people like and play their games, that they won the console war, right? That they're this major like force in gaming. Like, until the very end, you were going to see these people cope and seethe about the fact and try and like write off Nintendo's successes as just being due to nostalgia blinded fanboys, when in reality Nintendo is just the best at what they do. They're an exceedingly well run company, and every obstacle that the industry like tries to fabricate and put in its place, we're at the point now where people are getting angry over like updates to Mario Kart. Like, oh, how dare they take away my random match roulettes, letting me do track races, 3 lap races. It's so like balls to the wall insane that like you can't possibly take it seriously. And that's my big takeaway when it comes to like these kind of controversies and these kind of rants and copes and sees. Like, who cares? Like, you're not talking about the products, you're not talking about the games. All you're trying to do is trying to keep the narrative around Nintendo as negative as possible forever. And there is going to come a day when people like myself are going to grow sick and tired of it.